Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Writer's Block. It's your host, Aaron from the Ballpit here, with another topic that I would like to discuss today. And that has to do with a recent video that was posted by the Sidemen and an incident that happened with their most popular member and one of the 7 Sidemen, KSI. So in this Sidemen video, with whatever was happening, KSI made a joke that included the usage of what is known as the P word, which isn't a word that's commonly used in the United States, which I'm from the United States, but it's commonly used in Europe, and it's used as a racial slur for Southern Asian groups and people. And there's a lot that is kind of that I want to discuss in regards to this incident. So let's just kind of go right into it. So the first is kind of how it appeared in the video itself. And what kind of confuses me is it seems like there was multiple levels that the usage of this term being displayed in the video had to go through before it would reach the public eye, in a sense. So first of all, KSI would have to have the negligence, ignorance, or whatever else to use the term in the first place. That's step one. Step two is that none of the other talent, so the other 6 sidemen or the featured guests, which were Chunks and Philly, none of them said anything to prevent that, to get it out, to cut it, to get rid of it, whatever. So that's the second step. It got through all those other 8 people. Third step is that none of the cameramen or people that are doing sound, doing video, none of the behind the scenes people that were there at that day did anything about it. That's the third step. The fourth step is it went through a team of editors, all of which sat there and didn't think to cut it out. It went through 4 steps, and at least 15 maybe people that were there and could have stopped this from being sent out publicly, and yet it still was. And that's insane to me. That's insane. And I think that in of itself is something that the Sidemen should be reflecting really heavy on, because either there's 2 kind of things that could be the reason, the cause for this word being publicly lambasted in the way that it was. The first of which is that the Sidemen video was being rushed, and it's like, it's just something that slipped under the radar, which in of itself is a problem, because if you're, a YouTube channel, pretty much a media company almost at this point with almost 17 million subscribers, you should be more dutiful in checking in stuff like this to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen. Whenever KSI used it, that should have immediately been marked by somebody for cutting out and editing. So the first option, where it's just ignorance, just kind of fell under the radar, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the reason that it happened. That's just a possible one, which is why I listed it. The second one is what I think is the more likely approach, which is nobody cared. Nobody cared that KSI used this slur. And you may wonder, why would nobody care? And a problem that can happen kind of in internet spaces or just in areas in general is the normalization of discrimination against certain groups. Whereas it's not seen as intensely negative to say things against that group. And as we know, or as you may not know, but as some people know, in the UK, there is discrimination against people from Southern Asia. They have a large population of people that have immigrated, whether it's first, second, third, whatever generation from that area of the world, and therefore there's a lot of discrimination against them. But obviously, in society, it's been normalized. That's been not even a thing that's just relevant to the UK. Racism and discrimination against people from Southern Asia is a problem in the United States and other Western nations as well. And I think that the normalization and the lack of care for discrimination against those groups is probably the most likely reason why that word got pushed through to the final cut, because people thought it was more of a funny haha joke than it was an actual problem. The second thing that I want to get to, I have 3 total points. That was the first one I want to get to. The second point I want to get to is KSI himself. Because whenever a popular influencer goes through controversy, whatever it may be, there's always the question, can they come back? Can they make it back? Can they be reinstated into their position of mainstream appeal and success and relevance even after this moment? And the answer is pretty much always yes. There's obviously certain things, usually involving sex crimes, that you can't come back from. Like if trigger warning. Like if you rape somebody, you molest somebody, something to do with underage, like with children or whatever, like sex crimes like that, you're done. Like you don't come back from that. You don't come back from that. Rightly so. You just don't. But in other sorts of, crimes, especially ones that are related to what KSI did, was the usage of a slur, people can't come back from that. PewDiePie came back from that. iDub still kind of has a career after everything that happened. Ethan Klein from H3H3 still kind of has a career after everything that happened. So it is possible to come back from the usage of a racial slur. And then the better question is, how does KSI go about doing that? Before I say anything else about that, first thing I want to point out is whatever I'm going to say next, I don't know yet, I haven't figured it out, I just kind of do these on the fly. Whatever I'm about to say next should not be used as the guidelines for doing so. KSI and his team should personally reach out to leaders in the South Asian community, especially leaders that are based in the UK, because that's the most relevant area for which we're talking about right now. KSI should reach out to South Asian leaders and ask them what to do, how he can redeem himself to them, because those are the people that he hurt. He did not hurt white fans. I'm not from South Asia, so as much as I look at his usage of the slur and I say that's bad, that's negative, I'm not the one that's going to feel the personal effects from his actions. So he should reach out to the South Asian community and work out with them how he can redeem himself and what he should do moving forward. What I'm going to say is more of a basic guideline of what I think is the best path forward. Obviously, first step, which he already did, was apologize. And I didn't think his apology was that good enough. He goes, I'm sorry for doing that. It's never okay to say that word. That's good so far. Then he says, I don't want my fans to put me up on a pedestal. I make mistakes. Whatever. That's not good enough. That's not good enough just to say I make mistakes, because what you're doing is you're shifting the blame. You're saying, oh, this is just a mistake. I didn't mean it. You used a racial slur, man. You used a racial slur. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. And it didn't slip. It didn't slip out. It's not even like he was rapping a song and the N-word slipped out, which, KSI is black, so that's a whole different thing in of itself. He can obviously use the N-word, but you get what I'm saying? It's not like it slipped out like that, which is its own problem. That was planned, and he knew how bad it was because he preempted his usage of the slur by saying, I don't mean this maliciously. How do you use a racial slur against a group you're not a part of, not maliciously? The usage of the whole point of a word being a slur is that it's used maliciously. That's not, what are you talking about? That's not just a mistake. That was intentional. You may not have intentionally said it to hurt people, but you intentionally said the slur. It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. And you shouldn't describe it as such. That's second step. You should educate yourself on why that's bad, because obviously if you're going to use the racial slur, you are ignorant to the actual history behind the usage of that slur. So you should educate yourself. And the third thing is that you should become what is known as an anti-racist. Now, I'm going to try to do my best to describe anti-racism. through the usage of it. But I'm not perfect, especially because I don't have a script. I'm not reading from a script. It's just coming straight from my concussed brain. And I'm not currently concussed. I've just had a couple of them. So it's like brain damage. There's a sociologist. I think his name is Kendi Malcolm? No, that's a politician. I forgot his name. You can look up, like, how to become an anti-racist. But the foundations, the basis of becoming an anti-racist, is it's somebody that at one time held negative racial stereotypes or biases against a group. Then that person recognizes that bias, works to combat their own personal bias, and then works to combat that bias in society around them. That is how you become an anti-racist. And it starts from recognizing your own bias and then combating it in society around you. And that is what KSI needs to do. He needs to educate himself on why the term that he used is bad and harmful. And then he needs to actively work and use his economic and social capital in the society to actively combat discrimination against the Southern Asian population. That is what KSI needs to do. And the entire time he's in the process of doing that, he should be in direct contact with leaders and members of the South Asian community. Now, it's got a little heated. Or calm down a bit. Probably not, but The third thing that I want to talk about in this entire situation is the response, the internet response that was seen after this happened. So obviously, KSI, the Sidemen brand, and many members of the Sidemen, I think except for Rhoda Shaw, all apologized on social media for this event happening. And what I saw a lot in the comments when I clicked, which is my own fault. I shouldn't have been in Twitter comments. Everybody that's in Twitter comments knows how bad entering Twitter comments is. But I decided to go in there anyways. What I saw from a lot of people saying, oh, society's so soft nowadays, bro. Like, these kids nowadays wouldn't last a minute in the old, Xbox 360, Xbox Live parties, PS4 chats, or whatever. Like, they don't get it. And, being a kid that was a part of those Xbox Live chats, those PS4 parties, it's still not okay. Usage of a slur and being offended by a slur, that's not being soft. And it makes me angry because a lot of the time, the people that are saying that are white kids. And it's like, I'm sorry, but you obviously don't get it. And this is coming from a white kid. I'm a white kid. I cannot understand what it's like to have slurs used against me. I don't, because I'm not part of a minority racial group. I'm not. And so for me to sit there and say that people who are part of a minority racial group are soft because they're offended by somebody using a slur that has historically been used to discriminate against their minority racial group, it's fucked up. That's it. It's fucked up. You don't understand as a white kid, and I don't understand as a white kid, so I can't sit there and say that they're soft for getting offended over something I can never experience. That's really it. It's like, and I know it's edgy internet kids. You can't combat edgy internet kids. They're always just going to be there. And a pretty strong proportion of them, don't probably actually mean it. They're probably just doing it to get interactions. The whole thing of saying something controversial so you get interactions online, that's been around forever, man. Like, of course, like that happens all the time. But it's just personally angering because all that's doing is increasing the social discrimination that people from South Asia feel. And that's, you know what? That is the fourth thing we're going to talk about. Just came up with a fourth thing. That's something that really pisses me off. And I know that KSI did not mean to do this, but it happened. And it's the same analogy you can compare to the situation is Atrioc with the deepfake porn. He didn't mean for it to become as public as it now is, but It's the reality of the situation. And all that's going to happen from this. So KSI used this word, and he came under some heat for it. And he's taking a step back from the internet. So his fans are now going to see that, and the discrimination that South Asian communities face is going to increase, especially in online circles, because of this. Because they're going to, the KSI's fan base are going to retaliate against this racial minority group for canceling their king, their favorite influencer. And so all this has done is just increase discrimination against a minority group, which, trust me, they don't need more discrimination in their lives. It's just really, really sad. And I think the way that it's been handled by people on the internet is bad. And also by the Sidemen. Everything that they've put out, KSI's apology, the Sidemen brand apology, and the apologies from 5 of the other Sidemen felt so forced and corporate. They all came out around the same time. They all said kind of the same thing. And it's like, then the real question comes down to, are you apologizing because you're actually sorry and you actually feel bad for the harm that you've now caused for the South Asian community? Or are you apologizing to save face, to save sponsorship deals, to save your brand from losing money? Which one is it? Because the way that it's come across, it feels very cold. Feels very corporate, and it feels very self-serving. I would love it if one of the Sidemen, and if they have, please link it to me. I would love it, especially if KSI or one of the other Sidemen really made a video or made a live or something where they really went into it. They really, they had a discussion or an apology about this topic that felt more personal and less them just copy pasting a script into their Twitter. Because at the end of the day, while they may lose a little bit of money from their brands, they're not the victims. So I think that in this situation, people should be focused on helping the victims. And it seems like the people who caused the harm, the Sidemen, aren't focused on that. And that's sad. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Have a great rest of your day.